The Wolves fall back to earth. They lose to the Bulls tonight, 109-101. I got the expert, Tyler Metcalf. He's going to help us break it all down. It's all coming up next on the Locked On Wolves POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another T-Wolves POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man right there, Tyler Metcalf. He's on X, at TMetcalf11. And Tyler, before we jump into all the action, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, man, where do you even start? Wolves coming off that, electric win on the road in Denver just 2 nights ago. You retake the number 1 seed. Everyone's loving life. We're riding high. Life is good. Now you come back home. 3 straight games at home, all very winnable. Starts tonight versus Chicago. But as Chris Berman says, but that's why they played that game. Give some credit to the Bulls, man. Yeah. They came out. They shot the lights out of the gym, man. It was insane. I'll let you bust out like all the numbers, all the stats, all the analytics, but Bulls with Caruso, I think he broke his career best from 3. But anyways, DeRozan, they were just money from all night. Shot 57% from 3, 17 of 30. Meanwhile, the Wolves, you shoot 30%, 11 for 36. Bulls took a 16-point lead in that first half. Give credit to the Wolves, too. I mean, I thought they played pretty well tonight, pretty tough, despite, again, not scoring. I mean, that didn't really show up in the box score. We'll get into that a little bit later. But turnovers were a big issue tonight. Fast break points were a big issue tonight. And the Bulls come into the Target Center. It just gut punched the Wolves. They knocked them back down to earth a little bit after that big win versus the Nuggets, which now that feels like an eternity ago. But 109-101, that's your final. Bulls come out on top. Kick us off here, Tyler. Biggest takeaways, biggest 8 topics, top of your head.
Yeah, and the biggest disparity was just the difference in shot making between the 2 teams tonight. The Bulls were making anything and everything they threw up. Like you said, 58.5% from 3 on the night. They shot better from 3 than they did from 2 tonight. Conversely, the Wolves 29.7%. You're never going to win an NBA game shooting that poorly. So when Jaden McDaniels goes 1 of 6, Anthony Edwards is 0 of 5, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is 1 of 5. When you get two made threes between those 3 guys, they're probably not going to win. It was tough, and it didn't feel like the Bulls were just feasting on open look after open look after open look. The defense felt solid. Guys were closing out their rotations. Their hands were really active. They were disrupting drives and passing lanes. They forced, and they had, 12 steals and 16 turnovers by the Bulls. Solid defensive game. They just made literally everything they threw up there. Alex Caruso, 7 of 8 from 3. He just turned into Kyle Korver tonight and just couldn't miss. And, DeRozan's even knocking down threes for the first time in 5 years and knocking down every mid-range jumper that he, steps into. So it was an incredible shot-making performance by the Bulls. And then conversely, the Timberwolves just could not buy a shot tonight.
So outside of just the cold shooting, I mean, again, you mentioned it. There were times they just couldn't buy a bucket tonight. And the Bulls, on the other hand, okay, they couldn't miss. But outside of the shooting aspect of everything, which obviously I know that's what makes or breaks every single game. But what was the one thing that really drove you nuts, with the tangible stuff? The points off turnovers, fast break points, what was it?
And the points off turnovers, they were scoring like 2.7 points per possession in the first half off of that. So it's like, okay, that's not sustainable. And ended up being that way. And the big thing that drove me crazy tonight was Anthony Edwards just kind of reverting back to some old bad habits where he was just really forcing the issue, over dribbling the ball, not keeping it moving as quickly as we've seen him do for most of the season. And he was just really kind of trying to force himself into a rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't buy a jumper. We saw him miss a handful of layups in the third quarter too, especially down the stretch of the third before he was going to get subbed out for that, the start of the fourth there. So you could feel him just really trying to find a rhythm, try and find a scoring groove, and he couldn't do it. And that led to a bunch of misses, both at the rim, from the perimeter, 6 turnovers, him just kind of driving into stuff without a plan. And as we've seen in this last month or so, the refs are letting a lot more contact go around the rim. It kind of affected him tonight more than we've seen in these last couple games.
Yeah, well said on Ant, too. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit more here in segment 2. But what's a loss like this now mean for your psyche, right? Your momentum. We're so close to the playoffs now. You go from beating arguably the hottest team in the league on the road to losing to a sub 500 team at home. Just another roller coaster kind of emotions. Is this a game, once the dust settles, we wake up tomorrow morning, we should just give more credit to the Bulls for playing the way they did? Or is there plenty to pick on if you're a Wolves fan?
I mean, the easy way and probably the healthier way to go about it is 29% from 3. Never
Right.
going to win a game when you shoot and then the
Right.
other team shoots 30% better from 3. That's probably the healthy way to go about it. I'm sure I'm sure on a rewatch there's a bunch of little more nitpick stuff, especially with the ball
Mhm.
movement, that we can kind of dive into. And I'm sure the coaching staff will probably have that similar approach. But we just saw what they looked like against the best team in the league just the other night.
Mhm.
So I this isn't a game where I'm freaking out about it, where I'm really panicking about, oh my God, what's the identity of the Wolves? Oh my God, they're throw away another game in clutch time. They couldn't make a shot tonight. And will that happen a handful of times in the playoffs? Probably. But we've
Mhm.
seen when they get hot, their offense is awesome, and every single game, their defense translates. So I just chalk it up to a really awful shooting night all around.
Yeah, agreed. I think most people would agree with you there too. Let's go to the stream. Our boy Random Planet. Anyone else a little worried that once again they are falling back to not getting up for teams they should beat? This has been a common theme for this team going back to last year. Now, I will say, of course, they've kind of bucked that trend quite a bit this year.
Mhm.
And in theory, I mean, once you get to the playoffs, this shouldn't really be an issue. You're not playing any sub 500 teams anymore. Then that's never really been the issue. Win or lose, they usually bring their A or A minus kind of game most of those nights. How do you explain it though? I mean, here we are, almost the end of a second season now, where it still feels like they're losing these really winnable games.
Yeah, and I think it's just it's a brutal part of the season. These guys are
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
It's the end of
That's a
March.
good
Their
point.
their eyes are on the playoffs. They're
Yeah.
focused on, like that game against Denver. They knew they had to have that game. They knew that, that was a huge swing in the standings and tiebreakers. So they had to have it. This was, realistically, all of these games are kind of must haves. But I would, with what, 9, 10, 11 ish games left in the season, I would much rather see them consistently step up and really dominate their playoff competitors,
Right.
and maybe take some of these games for granted. Obviously, we never want to see that, but the fact that they're not dogging it or coming out flat or not showing up at all against the really high level teams, I'm not worried about it. If this was more of a consistent thing where this was game after game after game of them coming out flat and just not respecting their opponents, and this was December and January, then it's like, okay, how many of these are going to pile up, and is that really going to affect the standings? But there's so little time left in the season. These guys are just solely focused on getting to the playoffs, and kind of dominating the teams that are right around them in the standings.
Yeah, and I think our guy Jaden kind of hit the same head that you're talking about as well. Not only so late in the season, it's a grind, it's a gauntlet, everybody's tired, but after what you just went through, I mean, how much gas did you really expect them to have left in the tank? And I get it. You got to show up, man. No excuses. Doesn't really matter. These games are so pivotal and so huge at the end of the day. But you're right. I think they may be just kind of riding on E here a little bit. Hopefully that's not the case, though, and we'll find out in these next 2 home games. Box score scouting here. Let me pull it up. Doesn't always tell the whole story, I know, but something to go off of. Let me just read these off. You tell me what just kind of jumps out the most. Rudy, 19 points, 11 boards. Naz Reid, 14 points, 3 of 9 from 3. Conley, 19 points, 5 of 9 from 3. He's been red hot from 3 the past 2 games now. Monte Morris, 9 points off the bench. But then Ant, 22 points, 0 of 5 from 3. Jaden, 8 points. Boy, he's been hot and cold. 8 points, 1 of 6 from 3. And Nah, 5 points, 1 of 5 from 3. Just final thoughts on that. Just another opportunity to shout out anyone else tonight for good or bad.
Yeah, let's keep it positive. I thought Rudy Gobert was phenomenal tonight. Just the amount of possessions that he kept alive on those tip outs, the offensive rebounds he secured on his own, the and ones, obviously 5 missed free throws hurts, but that's who he is. He's going to have some of those nights. Next game he could easily go 7 of 7 from the line. We've seen that from him all year. So it kind of had a similar feeling to that Detroit game where he was really the only guy that consistently kept them in the game with his ability to control the paint in the interior on both ends of the floor. So I thought his defense on the interior was really good tonight. The rebounding was huge, and the way that he just constantly kept possessions alive and finished around the rim was really, really big for them when no one else could buy a bucket.
Yeah, well said. He was absolutely outstanding once again tonight on both ends of the court, per usual. All right, plenty more deep dive on the Wolves' tough loss tonight. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. eBay Motors literally has it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors, they got you covered. Check this out. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. This is going to kind of sound weird after a loss, but I never got your 2 cents in kind of your biggest takeaways from that last game versus Denver. That was just so epic, man. So huge. Now you lose tonight, though, as we've discussed. Does it feel like now that game was kind of all for naught? After you lose a game, you're supposed to come back home and definitely supposed to win. And again, just real quick, 30, 60 seconds. What was your biggest takeaways from that Denver matchup that we might have missed?
Biggest takeaway was just how consistently they can make things really difficult for Nikola Jokic. I don't want to say that they can stop him or, really give, whatever. All they can do is slow him down. He's the best player in the world, but I think they're the best team in the West who matches up with them. And I think that last game was yet another. I know he put up big numbers again, but God, they make life difficult for him, and being able to have Rudy kind of roam off of him and then throw Kyle or Naz at him as the on-ball defender, it's huge. So I really think they have some fascinating defensive game plans and matchups that kind of work out pretty well against the Nuggets. It feels like it's all for naught, but when you beat the best team in the league, is that ever a bad thing? So
Right. No.
It's kind of a bummer to see that, they're going to probably drop back down to third tonight because Denver won earlier and OKC was beating the Knicks. I think that game's almost over. So both those will probably jump up into 1 and 2 again. So it sucks, especially when you lose to a team that you should have blown out at home. It's a bummer, but it also helped with the tiebreaker against Denver, depending on how these next 10 games go.
Somebody who maybe's got NBA TV, keep us posted. But OKC, They're down by 112,
Oh,
111 with 4.1 seconds left. So check that out. What do you think it's going to look like when Cat comes back? Like, obviously, a lot's going to depend on, is he 100% healthy? Is he 90%? What's his stamina? What's his, a lot of different factors going on. Their winning percentage, even after tonight's loss, I think it's still higher without him than it was with him. So they've proven they can win either way. I'm not coming on here and saying they're a better team without him by any stretch, okay? But I think there is something to be said here, Tyler, about chemistry and cohesiveness and just the way they're playing right now. And even though Cat's been on the team, I get it. It's not like he's a new player that just got traded here or anything like that. But my question is here, do you worry at all just the way they have been playing so well, them switching things up, kind of shaking the lineups back around again right when the playoffs start? I mean, that feels like what's going to end up being the timing when he does ultimately come back. Like, is it a, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing? Or Cat's just too good, you're going to find a way to make it work. You figure it out. And if there is a little bit of rust, then so be it.
Yeah, I think it's more so the latter because I know it kind of has similar vibes of last season where he came back from the injury super late and they were still trying to figure things out.
That's a good point.
But they've had 2 years now to kind of figure out chemistry and how everyone fits into the rotation. And it's basically the same team. So I don't think that there's going to be that much upheaval as there kind of was last year before everyone figured out their roles and how they connected with each other on the court. And I think it's going to hopefully, Cat kind of comes back and simplifies his game a little bit. This stretch by Nas is hopefully showing that, okay, when that ball kicks out to you on the wing, just let it fly. Just get those 3-point attempts up to 7, 8, 9, 10 a game, simplify your game, be super decisive. And then that allows the Wolves to put Reed back in the second rotation and really kind of dominate bench units again, like he was before Cat's injury.
I think RP's right on this too, just touching on what you said. This was a we miss Cat kind of game. They're just, Nas has been such a spark plug, as this comment mentions here, but they are tired, man, and they're running out of steam. They could certainly use just some fresh legs again, and all that talent doesn't hurt as well. We touched on this Friday with Jack, just because I know how closely you follow a lot of this stuff, and just given how huge of a story this is too. I'd love your quick 2 cents on the whole Glenn Taylor versus A-Rod and Laurie situation we've kind of found ourselves in here. Obviously, there's always 2 sides to every story. We don't ever have every single fact in front of us. I get that. Maybe someday we will. But just given what we know now, and maybe the stereotype around Glenn Taylor not being the greatest owner out there, to put it lightly, kind of, which side of the fence are you on? Like, what's your whole take on the whole thing, I guess? And how do you think it all shakes out? Where do you stand on everything?
Boy, it just sucks. It sucks that this is happening in the best season in franchise history. It's a really bummer of timing for it too, especially on the home stretch. By all accounts, it's not affecting the locker room or coaches or players or anything, and I wouldn't imagine that it really would. Thunder went up. That's a bummer. But it kind of sounds like buyer's remorse or seller's remorse from Glenn Taylor. And, if Laurie and A-Rod have missed some deadlines that Glenn was okay with then, it's a little misleading for him to all of a sudden not be okay with it now, even though they reportedly have the money and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of, he said, and the timing's awfully funny after all these reports are coming out that the Wolves are now worth almost $1 billion more than what he agreed to sell them for. But when you agree to sell something, you lock in a contract. So I don't know. It just sucks. All of it sucks. And the fact that it's distracting so much from the discussion of how awesome the basketball has been all season long is just kind of a bummer, especially as we get into the postseason here.
Yeah, perfectly said. All right, don't go anywhere. We're going to preview the Wolves' next game versus the Rockets. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Amazon Fire TV, the #1 streaming platform around. Fire TV It's your one-stop shop destination for everything sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. With Fire TV, they offer amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV. That gives you access to millions of movies and TV episodes, not to mention free and live cable TV as well. Whether it's opening weekend for the MLB season, the PGA Masters, that's right around the corner, NFL Draft at the end of the month, the March Madness tournament. Trust me when I say you're going to want to have a Fire TV at your fingertips on every device possible. Plus, Fire TV now includes all of our daily content from every Locked On channel and a vast majority of pro leagues and college conferences as well. You got to check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and your Alexa devices. Fire TV channels, it's the newest and latest and greatest way to tap into all your watching needs. So don't miss out. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. All right, let's close out. A little quick preview. These next two home games. Red Hot Rockets, that's Tuesday. You get a day break in between here. Red Hot Rockets, I know they lost tonight versus Dallas, but they, 11 in a row? I want to say. So 11 of 12. So Red Hot Rockets. And then the very next night, it's the Raptors on a back-to-back. Again, I know the Rockets lost tonight to Dallas, but man, they were on an absolute heater. What's made them so dangerous? Like, if you haven't watched them at all in the last 2.5 weeks, what's made them just kind of click and turn it on all of a sudden? And how do the Wolves match up?
Yeah, and the big driving force has been Jalen Green turning into just a supernova of a scorer. Up until this last couple months, he's always been a freak athlete, ton of potential, but he just hasn't been able to find that consistency and that game by game consistency that we've seen and experienced and been frustrated with and early on in his career and Jaden all throughout his career, and he's seemingly starting to find it. He looks incredible right now. He's playing the best basketball of his career and really the driving force behind their offense. They've also kind of made this interesting shift to kind of a small ball lineup a lot, where they have their rookie. He is a point guard, but they've been playing him at center and Inman Thompson, and that's allowing them to just really push the pace, allow him to kind of cut and disrupt stuff on the boards and off ball. And it just throwing a ton of athleticism, ton of energy out there to be just super obnoxious. So they're fun. This is an incredible streak that they're on. I don't think they match up well with the Wolves. I think the Wolves have way too much size, way too much athleticism, way too much strength that they'll be able to deal with it. Especially, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of match up with Jalen Green if they throw Ant on him or Jaden. I kind of like the idea of just throwing Nikhil on him. A little bit similar body types, allows Jaden to roam more off ball, be a better rebounder, weak side rim protector, and then allows Na to use his kind of quicker feet to stay in front of Jalen a little better. So it will be a really interesting matchup. But I think the Wolves match up pretty favorably with them.
Okay, you're making me feel a little bit better. Last thing I want to do now is go again into a team after this loss tonight. Clearly, dude, they are running on E right now. They're running on fumes. But then go into a team that's, again, 11 of 12. Last thing I want. But I'm glad after listening to you, we do match up pretty well. That feels good. What else is going on in the Western Conference right now? Since the last time we spoke, whose stock's kind of up? Who's down? What's caught your eye the most? We already touched on the Rockets, obviously. I know the Mavs have won 7 in a row, beating the Rockets, snapping that streak. What else is going on in the West?
Yeah, I think the Mavs are the other big one. I've never felt that intimidated or poorly about them, but Luka and Kyrie really seem to kind of be figuring out that 2-man pairing. And Gafford has added just a ton of size, athleticism, rebounding to their rotation. Derek Lively's been really good for them all year, but now having 2 7-footers in the rotation, basically at all times, has been absolutely huge for them. And then the Clippers, I know they've won 3 in a row, but their defense has been awful. They're just coming out flat. They're looking like the Clippers right after the James Harden trade and not during that 30-game stretch where they went like 25-5. So I think that those two teams kind of jockeying for that 4 or 5 spot will be really interesting.
How important is it for the Wolves to get this top seed versus, let's just say they end up in the 3rd seed? How big of a difference is that ultimately going to play at the end of the day? Like, how important truly is that number 1 seed? If I told you, hey, you can have the 1 seed, but again, you're going to be running on fumes heading into the playoffs versus maybe they re-energize like Jaden's talking about right here, but you end up the 3 seed. How huge of a contrast, I guess, from the 1 to the 3?
Um, I don't think that much.
Okay.
And obviously having home court throughout would be
Sure.
incredible.
Yeah.
But you look at the Wolves' record at home versus on the road, and it's really similar. At home, they're 26-10. On the road, they're 25-13. So there isn't that huge drop off or disparity in performances. And you kind of look at a team like the Nuggets, they're 30-8 at home and 22-15 on the road. OKC 29-8 at home, 22-14 on the road. So a little bit different for those guys. And with Denver, you always have the elevation aspect. So you don't want to have to deal with that for 4 games instead of 3. But if it's really just giving it everything that's left just to get that 1 seed, I think I'd rather go in healthy and ready and just fully prepared for the playoffs. Because they basically have the top 3 locked up unless something goes horribly wrong in these last 10 games.
2 weeks left now in the regular season. What's the biggest surprise or the biggest shocker you've seen in the NBA this season? Could be a team, could be a specific player, for good, for bad. I don't care. Give me one Wolves specific and then one NBA as a whole, kind of broader scope, big picture.
Oh boy. Wolves specific. I'm just gonna stick with the overall development of Anthony Edwards, especially with his feel for the game, how much the game has slowed down mentally for him. We see it in his rim attacks where the deceleration that he shows every night is just absurd. He can finish with finesse, with power, but then he's also really blended in and grown as a playmaker and started throwing those kick out passes. The lobs still aren't really there, but in time, he's 22. So I think just his overall growth as a real superstar, where yes, he can take over a game, scoring. He can take it over with his playmaking. He can, put up double digits rebounding. He can lock down the number 1 scoring option on the other team. He's really emerging into one of the faces of the league at 22. Which is unheard of.
They showed that graphic, most points in the NBA before age 23, LeBron, KD, Carmelo, Ant. Like when you just see his name up there with those 3 other names, man, it just, I know we talk about it every day. We follow this team, 82 games a season. We're here every day. It's tough. Not a lot changes from night to night, but man, it makes you take a step back and just realize we are watching greatness right now, and he's only going to get better. It's insane. Duke lost. My bracket's pretty much toast. I know you're an elite college basketball mind, though. Last one before we get out of here. What do you think of this Final Four we got now? UConn, everyone's favorite. That's chalk. Versus Bama. NC State, the Cinderella. There's always one Cinderella, man, taking on Zach Edey and Purdue. Break it all down for us.
UConn looks unstoppable. It's the boring analysis, but they are just so good. Everyone defends, everyone can score, everyone passes. They play off each other. They play just a gorgeous brand of basketball. So yeah, they've been dominant, but they've been really fun to watch. Just like individual matchup wise, we got some really fascinating matchups of like old school big man centers who would maybe go top 5 in any draft 20 years ago, if not number 1 overall. Zach Edey versus DJ Burns is going to be a lot of fun in that Purdue, North Carolina, or NC State matchup. And then,
that's going to be good.
And then Donovan Clingan on UConn is looking like a top 5 pick. One of the most dominant players in the country, absurd defender. If him and Edey meet up in the finals, it's going to be basically the real life version of Godzilla versus King Kong.
Oh, dude, I didn't even think about that potential matchup. That would be outstanding. And I don't know the spreads or the lines, but I would guess as of now, That's probably the favorite to happen. That matchup,
Yeah.
UConn versus Purdue. I got to imagine. All right, man. A lot of fun. Always have a lot of fun with you, win or lose. Well done tonight. Wolves get punched in the gut. 109-101 to the Bulls. OKC wins. Denver wins. Wolves drop back to third in the West. 2 more at home. Next one up is Tuesday versus the Red Hot Rockets. Tip off for that one, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. As always, huge shout out to everyone that joined us on the stream. You guys are the absolute best. And rest assured, we'll be back each and every game, same time, same place, right here to break it all down. Quick reminder, go check out all of Tyler's work on X at Team Metcalf 11. And make sure you check out the entire crew on the Minnesota Basketball Party. That's each and every Wednesday. Sam Ekstrom hosting, our guy Jack Borman, Gophers legend Ron Johnson, Kara Evans, Reggie Wilson, and don't forget Ben Beacon, always ripping it up over on the Locked On Wolves podcast each and every day as well. That'll do it for us tonight. He's Tyler Metcalf. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. Until next time, signing out.